Alright, we're going to start the final part of our socionics lesson. Just covering up some finer details and stuff like intertype relations and differences between Model A and Model G, and we'll also cover subtypes a little bit. Alright. So first thing here, suppose we just throw out it's an interesting website that a associate of mine shared. Said in the chat there. And well, basically you just look at a type, say like, I don't know, LSE with EIE. How do they get along? Super ego, whatever. See the table. SE, super ego relations. These are relationships built on mutual respect. Each partner sees qualities in the other that are desired, but they must maintain some psychological distance. Because one-on-one, they can start to annoy one another. Although having very similar energy levels and lifestyles, they have very different abilities and life values, lead to misunderstanding. So yeah, you can just look at any sort of thing. Meanwhile, we can look at ILI compared with SEE. You see their duality. Interaction is generally rewarding and satisfying for both, providing each other with inspiration and support. It's often considered the most beneficial relation, as all interactions are complementary, providing an other half effect. Meanwhile, you can look at, say, LIE with LIE. You'd see identity relations. Symmetric, these partners are very similar in their abilities and the way they look at the world, as many of the same traits are shared. This relationship is the easiest to form and will succeed when there is a need to transfer accumulated knowledge and experience back and forth. Both will have complete understanding, but due to similarities, will be largely unable to help the other with identical problems. Or you could look at, say, LIE and.
Oh,
Hmm?
I mean, I know that it says that these are like the best or whatever. I understand what this is saying about the matches, but does this like fit for you? Would you say that this is accurate based on your experience?
I don't really. So socioeconomics was developed with intertype relations in mind, but I personally think they're a bit. They kind of dropped the ball. Like, sure, in a broader sense, theoretically, yeah, I could see it, but this is basically based on text. It's not really. The real world isn't as clean as typology. But yeah, you can see LIE with LSE, like discuss similar topics and often have many common interests, but when they come to practical implementation, their mutual goals and projects, each finds that the other acts in contrary ways. Um, Here we could look at. I think we got some people in here. Let's look at LIE paired with LII. That'd be fun to look at. Oh yeah. Here we have the extinguishment relations. These partners have many common interests, but are often confused by each other's seemingly counterintuitive insights. Their thinking styles are very different despite being good at similar things. Each may often feel that the other is deliberately trying to undermine or extinguish their approach, but this is not intentionally the case. So yeah, I mean that's kind of intertype relations is an interesting thing to look at, but it's not my favorite part of socionics. So we can move on to the next thing. Is that okay with everyone? You ready?
Yep, you're the lead.
All right. Next part. Quadras. We're going to do a deep dive on quadras here. All right, here we got to start to central versus peripheral. That's the three dichotomies. aristocratic versus democratic, ascending and descending. And we see that central is beta slash gamma, peripheral being alpha delta, aristocratic being beta delta, democratic alpha gamma, ascending alpha beta, and descending gamma delta. I just read that off for you, just in case you can't read. And for defining these, you see centrality, the center of the Socionics Quadras, most notable for being in the center of society in terms of the power dynamics that play within a given society. So this is suggesting that beta and gamma are at the core of our society, more or less. This can manifest in an ability to climb through power ladders to influence others, and central logical types. It manifests in a climbing through social ladders to be an authority, beta STs, and to become influential in the field of democratic scientific research, gamma NT. A word to describe centrality is competition. So that's an interesting little look there. Meanwhile, peripheral is probably a better known word. I guess both kind of are, but less oriented on seeking for influence within a given group, and is more oriented on simply living life. Their orientation is more onto the seeking of ideas and comfort for its own sake, and to retire to a life of lacking rivalries, where competition tends to be a more driving factor within these types rather than competition. No, cooperation rather than competition. All right, so here we can see the difference being. I think what I'm seeing here as a pattern here is that centrality is people that is these types that value S, E, and Ni in that axis. Yeah, exactly right. And then peripheral being NESI. That's the common trait they're seeing here. And yeah, I mean, you think about competition for the SE. Meanwhile, for peripheral, I mean, it's less SE focused. That's kind of all I can really say there. Yeah. But if you want some examples of these types, think about like an SLI, you're like chill grandpa who just wants to retire to a cabin in the woods, being in the peripheral category. Or you think of a Sigma male grind set LIE or SLE for the centrality. Just for some stereotypes there. Next we see aristocratic / democratic. Here we see aristocratic being the betas and gammas, are also known as elitarian. This dichotomy in Quadras is based on the principles of hierarchies in the social sphere, and one's worth being based on more inherent qualities of those people. Their worth is based on status, their standing in society, etc. Aristocratic types are also prone to viewing everything from a collective sense rather than an individual sense, effectively seeing people as groups. Like they'll see people as black, white, African, not American, poor, rich, stuff like that. Whereas by contrast, you'll see democratic, or they'll just see people as their individual thing, or rather just on an individual base, like, okay, I kind of like this person, or I don't like this person, but it's not a matter of what they come from, and stuff like that. And that's going to be for the alphas and gammas. But going on reading this essay here, you see collective sense rather than individual sense. In the worst case, it views types as people as groups, which may lead to discrimination. This has happened. We see like beta types like Adolf Hitler. No elaboration needed there. In the beta quadrant, it is reminiscent in the Hindu caste system from ancient India, where people are born in different parts of races and or ideology followers into collectives. rather than finding their individual reasons for doing so. In this quadra, there exist heuristic, humanitarians, NF, and technical managerial, ST clubs. Yeah, so Wraith, on deltas being aristocratic, interesting thing there is because they value NE, a lot of times what that can lead to is like they'll try to fight their natural inclination, but what's natural to them is to think of people as groups. But they will try to leave some more gray area in there. Whereas betas are going to be the best example of an aristocrat. Likewise with gammas compared to alphas. Alphas are both are naturally going to see people as individuals, but you might occasionally see a gamma person saying that they can't see as groups just because they're more simplifying because of their NI. It's that synthesis we've talked to you about before. Now we can look at democratic, also known as egalitarian. This dichotomy in Quadras is based on the principle of the individual. Note that word, very important. One's worth is subjective and is more open to one's own interpretation to the point of where external status or value does not matter. In a sense, it is based on what the majority wants rather than what a select few want. Democracy, in the sense of socionics, tends to lack the collective grouping that aristocratic types have, such as the profiling based on collective traits among groups. In this quadra, there exists social communicating, SF, and scientific researching, NT clubs. All right, now we can look at ascending, descending. Actually, do we have any questions on democratic and aristocratic? Going once, going twice. All right, moving on. Ascending, descending. So for ascending, we see the ascending types are, we can scroll back up here and see what ascending and descending is. Ascending was alpha, beta, and descending was gamma, delta. Here we see that the ascending types are most prone to objectivism and expressing their opinions about a subject in a genuine way, a more matter-of-fact and direct way to express a truth to the outside world. This is due to their expressiveness and their tendencies to deal with ascending through society at the beginning of your life, as a child and as a teenager. Its metabolism is based more on rising from teenager to adult, commonly based on emotism, evaluation, and evaluation being another way of saying FE, and objective relationships between ideas and concepts through an understanding of the world around you. L valuation, meaning TI, valued. So yeah, so that's going to be your alpha and beta for the ascending. Now, if we're looking for descending, ascending types are more prone to subjectivism, in which most things are based on how they view things and how they see a constructed truth. Like ascending types, which views life through naturalistic truths, they tend to view truths through how humans build truths, like with money, governments, religions, etc. They tend to descend due to how they descend through society in the later years of their lives. Descending types tend to be based more on serious approaches to thinking rather than one's own view on the relationships between concepts is a personal one. A subjective one at that, and that's the R evaluation, which refers to FI, and is prone to thinking through the management of these connections to control their usage of kinetic energy wisely through their maturity. P evaluation, which refers to TE. That's also where the seriousness comes from. Here we get more information on Alpha Quadra, which is known as effectively their children. I mean, you can see right here, pretty straightforward. This pretty much just gets summarized as Alpha Quadra being representatives of children in their life. Move on to betas, and they're the moody teenagers. Yep. One of these could be Adolf Hitler. Move on to gamma, young adults. And we got the old deltas, senior citizens. I'll send this in the chat for anyone who's interested in reading. But yeah, that's pretty much all you need for that. Now, we look at, let's see here. Let's compare Model A with Model G real quick. And this is, for any of those that don't know, Model A is what is primarily used in the socionics community. It's the one that we've been learning pretty much this entire time. And it's one that goes like this with all the thingamajigs. Meanwhile, Model G is quite different. And, well, it takes a lot of different perspectives. I'm not really considering myself an expert, but I can give you the basics here. And let's just say it's, well, it's a little bit different. So we still have this sort of pattern, I guess. It's a weird one. I'll send this in the chat. But yeah, we see this stuff, and in layman's terms, Model G consists of 4 energy levels, 4 blocks, and 8 energy positions based on the dichotomy of externalities and internalities. These elements are directed more. This is certainly an interesting way to look at things. You can see these explanations here. Frankly, I find that a lot of this is it's very elaborate, sure, but I prefer to look at the charges, which we can get to in a minute. But in any case, the program is going to be your first one, which is, where did they put the program here? One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right. Program being your equivalent to the dominant. This element governs the psyche, is in charge of how a person sets goals and makes decisions in their minds. This element is how one contributes most to other people. This element is used almost all the time. Again, making it your worldview. This element can be associated with an inherent skill that someone focuses on consciously. Note the word conscious. That does have some parallels with Model A. This element is paired with the manipulative. That would be this one right here, manipulative. Yeah, so suppose you're looking at an LIE, you would see a TE up here, and I believe FI down here. As we were. Creative. While the program serves as the governor of the psyche, the creative element executes the goals and decisions of the program. Compared to the program, this element is used situationally and is mainly used to execute the judgments of the program and is more unconventional in nature. This element is paired with the breaking. So again, looking at an LIE, you would see the creative being the NI, and your breaking would be SI. Yeah, same sort of concept there. Now, what we see here is it does go on with that same sort of concept, with it being used situationally and mainly to execute the judgments of the program. It's your tool. It's your favorite tool. I think that's how I like to look at it. Next, with the role, see, well, the program is the leader. The role acts as a leader, so it's a fake leader. The role element is trained in order to play a role in society through adapting to a different environment that one naturally struggles in. The element is also known as the trainee since its purpose is to be trained in this area to prevent making mistakes, which is normative in nature. This element is paired with the controlling 8. Um, that would be controlling. Role with controlling. Okay, just had to check that. Alright, anyway. And the controlling element is the one that trains the actor. So here we could look at, again, in the LIE, you'd see FE role. Same sort of idea where you have that higher up in the corporate setting who's visiting people in the mail room and being all nicey nice. It's not their natural thing, but it's what they're doing. All right. Launcher. While the role element can be trained, the launcher element is untrainable and cannot be used on its own. It is also unstable in usage and needs to be launched by a stronger element, notably the demonstrative element. This element also launches a cycle of information in the mind and is the first element to be processed in the thought cycle. This element is paired with the demonstrative. So I believe what we're looking at here, launcher, that's going to be, what is that one? Oh, it says tertiary. So that would be SE and the LIE, which makes sense in a way, where it's like not a natural thing, but you can sort of give it a reason to do things, especially when you look at it being paired with a demonstrative. Yeah, SENE, which isn't really an axis, but it is used in manner. Those are often used together. Alright, demonstrative, also known as a strong auxiliary. The demonstrative element is the strongest in close distances to other people. It isn't shown in the outward world, but to those nearest to you. It is shown strongly and creatively, like the program. This element is always in use, but a good analogy to differentiate between two is that the program is on the streets as the demonstrative is in the sheets. Yeah, this element is paired with the launcher. So I think what this is suggesting is the program is something that you're consciously doing. The demonstrative is an unconscious process because it's going to be in that same sort of category.
Or is it also talking about how you allow others to see you as opposed to maybe how you are in private with those you trust the most?
Yeah, definitely that too. Like, yeah, that's true. All right, suggestible, also known as the manipulative. The element is energetically strong but informationally weak. It seeks to, suggestible, gently strong, but informationally weak. It seeks to be taught in the ways of this element by someone with a stronger version of their element, which makes it easily influenced by other. It is good at performing hard tasks with the element, but it needs influence from others with it. This element is paired with the program. So in the context of the LIE, this is going to be the FI. They like people that they perceive as ethical or good at maintaining relations, stuff like that. Mainly the ethical, I believe. Now we see breaking. Also known as the painful, this is going to be equivalent to the vulnerable or along those lines. The element is the most easily drained in terms of energy. It can handle working with basic tasks, but when it is overwhelmed with information, the element becomes neurotic in usage and can cause instability in the mind. Creates a cycle of avoidance via ending tasks involving this element quickly due to painful experiences, while also inflating energy that it doesn't have. For instance, an idolize negative Fe, braking tends to become emotionally unstable when exposed too much to negative Fe, which causes an avoidance of it, causing them to become emotionally cold via trying to end negative interactions with emotionality quickly. This element is paired with creative too. So in the case of the LIE, this is going to be that SI paired with that NI. So it's going to be the SI factor. And this is something that you want to avoid. It's fairly straightforward there. Controlling. While braking is the avoidance part of the avoidant inflation block, the controlling element represents the inflation portion. It is the opposite of the suggestible element, which is energetically strong but informationally weak. I think I got something wrong earlier. The role was a different thing. Let's check that. The role would not be Fe. Oh yeah, never mind. It was the right thing. Alright. Wait. Roll F5. Yeah, so that was the Fe and the LA. I was just making sure. Alright. So the opposite of the suggestible element, which is energetically strong but informationally weak. It is energetically weak but informationally strong. Controlling element is also known as the hypocritical trainer, since the element tends to train the trainee about how it should go about using this particular element. However, when push comes to shove, the controlling element struggles to act on what it trains to others. It tends to control the flow of energy around others through inflating the amount of energy that they actually have. This element is paired with the role player 3. So this would be TI in the case of the LIE. Alright, so energy levels. Yeah, we can cover that. Alright. Maximum energy of the element of this level is to a high extreme to the point where the person has excessive energy when using it. Communication, this energy level tends to cover the most distance in terms of how spread out the person's communication is. It corresponds to the program and demonstratives. This is going to be your TE and the NE and the LIE. Optimum. They have enough energy with these elements to complete tasks with them. It can perform relatively complex tasks with that element in place of the optimum energy level. Their communication distance for this element is long to medium, since it takes more energy to communicate via longer distances with the element. It corresponds to the creative and dual seeking positions. So, dual seeking. Well, anyway. We know this is going to be the NI for the creative. Alright. Minimum. They have the bare minimum amount of energy to perform repeated simple tasks with the element at question. They can only do as much as the minimum in terms of consuming energy for these elements for the task level energy levels. Their communication style tends to be medium to short in nature, considering that their energy levels tend to be at the minimum and will drain if they attempt to communicate any distance exceeding this. It corresponds to the roll and break positions. So here we would see FE, and then break, I believe, was the break was the equivalent to the vulnerable, which would be SI. Now we see pessimism. is the least energetic element in socionics. It is usually unable to perform simple tasks with this energy level, since doing so will give them negative energy, which in itself is paradoxical. It tends to lack the capability to work under large loads. Their communication style tends to be extremely short, as they are unable to communicate this element properly without having negative amounts of energy to use with the element. In fact, it is what causes energy deficits with those elements. It corresponds to the activating and control positions. So we'd see the SE and control. I believe that's the, I mentioned it earlier. Hey, that was the TI. That's in the context of an LIE. All right, blocks. See social mission block. High energy levels, maximum and optimum. Externalities, bold and Model A schools. A person's overall mission in life. A person's specialties in the world is how they primarily contribute to society. What a person is outwardly the most adept at managing in terms of energy, and it consists of a defined goal within a person program and where that they tend to use to achieve their goals in life. It contains the base and creative elements. All right, now we see social adaptation block, low energy levels, minimum and pessimism, externalities, bold and Model A schools, something that a person does to adapt into society to provide a person a sense of stability. Without the mission, the social adaptation stack cannot function, as the social adaptation stack relies on the mission, on the person, and it acts as a dependent friend to the social mission stack. A person tends to primarily adapt to perform minimum tasks like temporarily taking the place of the social mission before it is shown to be subdued role, and it also tends to be sensitive about learning new data input and collecting feedback about it, which tends to be more neurotic than the role in nature when in use. Activating it contains the role in activating elements. Self-affirmation. Unlike the social blocks, the self blocks tend to prefer shorter distance communication, and it tends to be more assertive in nature about the self. Its orientation is towards attracting an opposite, a dual in this case, via the usage of assertions within you via the program, demonstrative. Or it is the element that is asserted on and is manipulated by external factors, like a dual seeking. It contains the demonstrative and dual seeking elements. So, yeah. Inflation avoidant block. This block tends to be the most strained under pressure, especially since it can only really perform simple tasks, while it swells the energy used in order to cope with a lack of energy in those elements in this block. The break tends to lose energy while trying to perform simple tasks that are too much for them in terms of processing energy. The control tends to inflate itself via attempting to domineer with the element outwardly, but behind the outward wall, they don't really use that energy for the element, nor do they act on what they say about the element. It contains the break and control elements. So yeah, we'll cover the let's cover the modalities real quick here. If it's minus, this is going to be for the charges, remember this. Minus means globalistic, contrasting, divergent, breaking down, negativity, and loss, whereas positive is local, comparing, convergent, building up / synthesizing, and gains. Now we're going to go over to here, and we'll look over the charges in detail. We see that with S+, so that's going to be Si positive, is going to be the sensation of comfort, adjusting the environment to make yourself as comfortable as you can, squeezing all the available comfort out of the space, making your territory autonomous, like a smart house. Health sensation, or a unified, contented taste that can become boring, finding a unified, automated, golden mean. Relaxed, smooth sensations, maximizing comfort. SLI is looking for peace and relaxation, tension and contrast. He does not like ESE maximizes comfort and health, puts a lot of effort in creating additional amenities. Meanwhile, SI minus is a sensation of discomfort, resolution of everyday discomforts, treatment of a malady, balancing extremes in tastes and environments, finding the golden mean between extremes, mediation. Sharp, invigorating, contrasting sensations, minimizing discomfort. SEI needs thrills drawn to a combination of opposing tastes. LSE minimizes discomfort, is not afraid of protracted inconvenience, overcomes illness. Now we see SE positive, so extroverted sensation positive, power sensing of resistance. Forming coalitions to defeat stronger enemies. Attacking force, maintaining balance, seeking an ally, defending, maximize strength, necessary / defensive force. Use when they can say it's not their fault that they have to use force, they were attacked first, or have no choice but to use force. SE defends better, relieves tensions between conflicting parties. LSI is set to use force as a means of defense, recognizes coercion aimed at breaking the resistance of the violator. Meanwhile, F minus, otherwise known as SE minus or extroverted sensing minus, power sensing of subordination, holding hostage, having others depend on you, building and respecting a hierarchy of the strong over the weak, minimizing and having contempt for weakness that interferes. Suppression force attacks and puts its hands, literal or figurative, on things proactively and openly, shows its strength and take something from someone because they aren't using it well. Confrontational, attacking, threatening, minimize weakness. SLE rather attacks, affects the vulnerable places, removes the weak. ESI demonstrates pressure first, pushing the person to certain actions. Alright. Let's send this in the chat. Now we see FE positive as E positive, ethics of positive emotions. Rejoice, sharing the joy of living in small groups. Simple, natural emotions that is looking for happiness, hospitality. Organic emotions, hospitable emotions, innocent, monotonous, without a double bottom. ESE shows friendliness and hospitality emotions. IEI is initially tuned to positive emotions, harmonizes the psychological climate, smiling and uplifting. FE minus, ethics of dramatic emotions, dramatizing events, more abstract, viral emotions that can spread through a populace and lead. Ridiculing others, escalating conflicts emotionally, catharsis, gaming emotions, irate, and contradictory roles. Shocking emotions, tragicomic, causticity, ridicule, ambiguity. EIE is shocking, pumps, stirs contrasting emotions. SEI is irritable, seeks to avoid negative emotions in every way, but vigorously throws out displeasure after arguing. Meanwhile, we look at FI positive. Relationship ethics of forgiveness, trusting people, giving them the benefit of the doubt, forgiving and pardoning, keeping close psychological distance, educational relations. People can be kind and patient and tolerant with each other. Ethics of forgiveness, attraction, maximization of good. EII strengthens the positive side of relationships, forgives evil. SEE strength positive relationships, values, connections, and acquaintances, is able to forgive and go to reconciliation. Meanwhile, FI minus relationship ethics of disapproval, being suspicious and not easily trusting, taking offense and holding on to grudges, keeping others at far psychological distance, distancing ethics, ethics of condemnation, distancing repulsion, minimizing evil. ESI condemns the negative in relationships, remembers evil, i.e., having broken off relations, does not seek to restore them, so distances from unpleasant people, acutely perceives the interpersonal negative. Next, we see NI positive, which is going to be the intuition of the future, rather. Intuition of the future. So, time oriented at the future, keeping things going in a wholesome, unified direction. Gestalt image of the future, bringing the positive future into the present and past, staying light and hopeful in spite of anxieties. Kairos, opportunistic time, intuition of novelty, hope, curiosity, aspiration for the future. IEI is optimistic, expects good results from the future. LIE is optimistic about the future, waiting for positive developments. Next, we look at NI minus, intuition of the past, time oriented at the past. All the separate parallel trends flowing from past to future, uh, particularity rather. Remembering past errors and trying to prevent and mitigate them in the future, warning and extinguishing others to prevent harmful extremes from manifesting, worrying, extrapolating, looking for signs of the past repeating itself. Chronos, historical time, intuition of avoiding danger, mistakes of the past, contradictory trends. Eyelies, pessimistic, cautions against mistakes, facing the past. EIE, well remembers alarming and traumatic situations and assures against future dangers. Now we look at any positive. Intuition of prospects. Intuition of getting into problems, takes the risks to maximize how well its ideas work, looking at everything as potentially interesting, like a child. Focusing on the most promising, original, interesting idea, / invention, / possible discovery to maximize its success. Finding new ways to make the same thing work, maximizing opportunities. Iley rushes in search of positive opportunities, picks up everything promising. Positive intuition. Positive NE, rather. EII sincerely believes in the idea, the ability of a person helps to reveal them. Again. Now we have NE minus, intuition of alternatives. Intuition of getting out of problems, natural alternatives, finds ways to avoid boredom, uses old things and people in a new way. Minimizing waste opportunities, not wasting the time one has for good or interesting experiences, making sure the natural potential of something or someone isn't wasted. Alternativeness, minimization of the impossible, hidden talents, hidden inclinations, i.e., pays attention to hidden abilities and alternative possibilities, gives advice on how to get around obstacles. LII puts forward alternatives, working on unclear, seemingly hopeless problems. Now we see TE positive, business logic of investment. Investing to make a profit, valuing profit over usefulness, exchanging profitable trade, quickly responding to demand, updating the product, raising prices. Financial logic, spending, investments, risks, combinations, running in a new one, profit maximization. LIE is more effective in a favorable market environment, the availability of investment. SLI in the business sphere is enterprising, seeks to get the most out of the effort. Meanwhile, TE minus is business logic of savings, being economical, working efficiently, using resources frugally, organizes labor to gain benefits, synchronizing parallel processes so that they don't interfere with each other, productive logic, savings, careful operation of the existing, cost reduction minimizes costs. LSE works well from a negative business environment with a lack of funds. ILI is very economical and cautious, considers every penny, knows how to minimize expenses. So TI positive, design logic. Moving on to TI positive, with design logic is the design, thorough reading of directions or drafts, securing the structure that has proven to work, stubbornly following principles and rules, logic of justification, legality, justifying one and only right, consistent, unified decision, either or way of thinking, step-by-step logic, logic of evidence, implicative, if something logic, building chains of causes and effects, linear, unidirectional, strengthens compliance, confident in its infallibility. LSI leads the investigation, proves ILE is inclined to positive logical conclusions, moving along the chain of some conclusions, moving far from the original position. TI minus analytical logic, identifying order in apparent chaos, fuzzy logic, parallel, polymorphic, multi-level logic with internal contradictions, logic of contradictions and paradoxes, explaining the complicated, isolation of pure non-overlapping parts or clips analysis, breaking apart of our justifications and assumptions from different viewpoints, relaxed and/or alternatives, logic of discovery, disjunctive, or logic, multidirectional, holographic, the logic of contradictions and doubts, paradoxical logic. LAI compares the opposite options, indicating differences and inconsistencies. SLE thinks alternatively, or his logic matches opposing decisions, discarding the worst. Now, next, now that we've seen the what the charges look like on their own for the different elements, we can see them and how they line up with the different types. Here, we can see different social missions, social adaptation, and what the elements are for each of them. At the top, we see the social benefit rings. Now we see the right ring. All of these on these two columns are going to have the same charges. And all of these on the left ring are going to have the same two columns here, right here, are going to have the same charges as well. But they're going to be opposite to the other two columns. Here we can scroll down to LIE, for example, and see that it's right here and has positivist because their top two are positive, the T and the NI. And these are all in the social mission block with the TE, the NI, the NE, and the FI. So we see the program, creative, demonstrative, and dual seeking. Meanwhile, the social adaptation, we see the role, the breaking, the activating, and the controlling. So we see that. Meanwhile, if you look at a type that would normally be considered similar in Model A, like the ILI, you look over here and you see that, oh, look, it's negative. Everything's opposite. So it's got negative NI, positive, negative TE, and yeah, stuff like that. It's quite the change. You can also see bigger differences like between LIE and LSE when you look at it this way, because again, they have opposite charges. And you'll see it's a negativist versus a positivist here. They both are linear, so they share a lot of other traits. But you will see some differences there and how they will manifest. So suppose you would have more business focused here or more economical and conservative for the LSE, like you saw earlier. Meanwhile, the ILI is going to be bothered by the past, and the LIE is going to be looking forward to the potential in the future. Now we see these are Model A subtypes here. It effectively comes down to if there's a preference for the extroverted functions or the introverted functions. And that's probably the best way I can simplify that. These aren't really that useful, but if you can nail them down, it's kind of nice to read since you'll probably feel like you're being called out if you get the right one. But yeah. Now we can look at DCNH, which is a Model G subtype system. And here we see concepts of dominant, creative, normalizing, and harmonizing. This can be useful to note some discrepancies within type and how they can manifest sometimes. Like with the dominant, you'll see your stereotypical leader. This is going to amplify your FE, TE, and SE. Yeah. Now you can see creative. This is going to amplify your NE, SE, and FE. Like at normalizing, this wants stability, so this is going to be more amplifying of TI, FI, and SI. And lastly, with harmonizing, you see this amplifies the NI, SI, and FI. Note that half of these amplify extroverted functions or elements, and half of these amplify introverted elements. That pattern does generally follow with their social leanings. Now we see it more in depth. We see right here what they look like more specifically. Like here we see the dominant subtype, terminating, contacting, connecting. Formula, so we see the TE, the SE, and the FE. So role, ambitious, hastening, leader. Temperament, linear, assertive. The dominant subtype is distinguished by the following behaviors in the group. Set to compete, often recognized by others as a leader. Sets clear goals and is well focused on them. Ambitious, although sometimes claims the opposite. Agrees only to temporary compromises. Needs victory above all else. Behaves decisively in difficult situations. Shows high performance, indicates what to do and who is going to do it. An authority, but not in the details. Has a wide range of communication, but a narrow circle of close friends. So this is going to be like your boss that is always cool, calm, and collected even when everyone's running around screaming. So now we see creative subtype. Initiating, contacting, ignoring. So we see the NE, the FE, and the SE are all amplified here. Rebellious, bright generator. Temperament, flexible, maneuvering. It's going to be the idea guy. The creative subtype is characterized by the following features: increased need for change, the search for new directions and allies, obsession with the idea, originality, rebellious and individualistic behavior, hostility, ignoring the usual standards, impulsiveness, aversion to long procedures. Again, idea guy. Now we see the normalizing subtype, terminating, distancing, ignoring. Formula being TI, SI, and FI. Those are all going to be the amplified ones, amplified elements. So role, quality, task, finisher. Temperament, balance, stable. The normalizing subtype is distinguished by the following manifestations and behavior: commitment to accuracy, compliance, discipline, cost effectiveness, and perseverance in the usual work, indiscretion and indecision in an extreme situation, patience and attention to detail, conservatism, has a narrow circle of true friends. Not the word true. This is going to be your worker bee, more or less, or like that chill guy who's kind of just doing his job that you can always rely on. Harmonizing subtype, initiating, distancing, connecting. It's going to be amplified NI, FI, and SI. Role, wise, kind, peacemaker. Temperament, receptive, adaptive. Harmonizing subtype has its own peculiarities of behavior in a group. Outwardly looks calm, easily loses an internal balance even from a small impact. Anxious, although hoping for the best. Focuses on proportionality and simplicity. Emotionally sensitive. Compliant, and avoids conflicts. And at close range is irritable, can live for the sake of his usual comfort, generous, able to empathize with the weak. Many reach out to him, but he prefers to slip away. This is going to be your sensitive introvert kind of feely. Now, what's interesting is that all of these can be paired with every socionics type. So theoretically, you could have an LIE harmonizing, element LIE normalizing, or LIE creative, even though LIE dominant would be like your stereotypical LIE. So we can look here and we can see some descriptions here and how they can differ. Like LSE dominant is going to be like an administrator. It's pretty straightforward. Prototypes, supervisors, community leaders, stuff like that. Stuff like this. Like an LSE creative is probably an interesting one to look at, synchronizing. Airline pilots, dispatchers, and complex system, normalizing That's normalizing, not the one I want. LSE creative. Let's look at this one. Supporter, broad specialist, head consolidators. A venturesome, engaging person who defends his interests with great passion, regardless of who is in authority. So yeah, we can just look at that. Here are. Just send this in the chat here. Yeah, we just look at anything here, like, or scroll down and look for like the, like, just everyone here. Do you want to like figure out what you might be? Anyone have any like ideas? Like what your subtype would be? Recommended IEI normalizing. Okay, let's look for that. Um, All right, so IEI normalizing. This is known as the reconciler, a mediator between parties on the same team with conflicting interests, sensitive and attentive to people. She is able to maintain friendly relations. She can be relied upon. She exhibits a tolerant attitude to other people's shortcomings and weaknesses. She finds it difficult to create or deal with conflict. In disputes, her focus is not on differences, but rather on unifying points, aiming to reconcile. She hopes that her kindness and dedication will eventually be rewarded. She is fairly apprehensive and is prone to doubt and fluctuations when making important decisions. Therefore, she's in need of moral and physical support. She needs to be involved in matters with clear objectives in front of her. She completes assignments responsibly. She respects strong, influential people who confidently explain their position and give specific instructions. In work, she tends to lose a sense of reality and is distracted by trifles. She never has time to complete within a set period due to more important things. Owing to distractions, she sometimes forgets to fulfill promises, but is then eager to make amends for the sake of maintaining good relationships with family and fulfilling the requirements of her position. She tries to develop business skills and carry out family responsibilities. She is quite organized and thorough in everyday life. She will not impose her own feelings if they are not reciprocated. However, relationships that have run their course aren't severed immediately as she becomes accustomed to people. She is able to wait patiently, coaxing them to start all over again. She may endure severe hardships for the sake of her ideals and her present feelings. All right, anyone else? You want to know yours? Well, I believe you're an LII, so that's where we're going to start. And then we can look back here and think over what you might fit. So, do you think you're in the dominant category? I don't. I think maybe creative or one of these. Could this be you? What about these ones? So you think you're creative? LI creative? Let's look at LI creative then. Right here. Autonomous. Prototype. A scholar with an alternative way of thinking and independent behavior. LI acutely senses the prospects of certain ideas or initiatives and is able to present and promote them to a wide range of people. She knows how to discover a person's individual ability, finding the best application for them. She quickly grasps the essence of unusual phenomena and complex subjects. She is attracted to interdisciplinary questions and complex systems. She clearly uses comparisons and analogies and develops new ideas for the sake of theory and practical application. She is a good speaker, able to succinctly and clearly convey material to the listener. She is passionate in intellectual debates and able to inspire others with her ideas. Her thoughts are focused on the future. The past is recalled rarely or casually. She is well suited for brainstorming activities. Distant projects are of little interest to her. She's mostly interested in the foreseeable future, which allows her to visually verify the results and realize the ideas on which she is working. Ooh, that's a long one. We could just, I'll send this in the chat. You can read it further. But yeah, putting more emphasis on the idea factor. Now we can look at LIE dominant. This is going to be, and I think you also said you can also see normalizing. I think where that could be coming from is if we saw the dominant description earlier about them being able to handle pressure very well, um, stressful situations. I think that's where that's coming from. So I think, fine, LIE dominant right here. Advancer, prototypes, pioneers, modern Western businessmen, not reliant on controlled or subjugated markets. Robert Barron, capitalists who introduce advanced technologies. This subtype is very adventurous and active in this sphere. Although he only seriously engages in activities which bring him real benefits, pragmatic and calculative. He has little interest in fantasy and concepts if there is no demand. He makes decisions quickly and immediately proceeds to implementation. He takes on difficult and risky affairs without expecting an immediate return. LIE assigns tasks, dividing them into stages to achieve at some results on each of them. LIE constantly expands the circle of his business interests. Having mastered one niche, he immediately moves on to the next. He never sits idly by. And he successfully competes with others. In addition to his energetic nature, he also possesses a strong internal motivation, believing in himself and the success of his goals. He always finds ways to make breakthroughs and overtake rivals. His resources are never depleted as he has no prosperity to consume, no propensity to consume luxurious or status-driven items. He does not like long explanations and prefers to pick up new information on the fly. He clearly sees the path between the ultimate goal and present situation and is able to calculate how much and what kind of resources are needed for each intermediate stage at every step in the process. LAE prefers not to be interfered with but demands planning, diligence, and verification of intermediate results. He hates distractions during his affairs. This hinders his focus, which is not easily achieved. Possessing leadership qualities, he encourages others to work by using himself as an example while making agreements on mutually beneficial terms. He negotiates contracts seriously and hates tricks and gimmicks. He only respects those who follow their words with deeds. He has a simple composure, but without familiarity. He will cut off relations with idlers and malingers remorselessly. Although he encourages competition, it often spoils his relationships with people. LIE is poorly versed in understanding the feelings of his partner. Due to this, he is mistrustful and fearful of making mistakes that put him in an awkward position. Awkward in confessions, he tries to deliver them in a humorous manner. He prefers to prove his feelings not by words but with deeds. He is committed to strong, stable relationships more than other types. He needs a solid backing, a strong family support, as well as home from where he can replenish his strength from stressful work and competition outside the home. He has attractive relationships with serious, reserved, and dedicated people that can offer reliable support through life's troubles. I suppose they'd be good for pairing with the normalizing type then. Ala'i is not afraid of difficulties. He finds it interesting to test himself in extreme conditions, overcoming all obstacles to come out of the struggle victorious. He goes through numerous kinds of activities and professions. He demonstrates endurance, perseverance, and at the same time optimism. For him, it's better to take the challenge and lose than to sit around doing nothing. He boldly defends his views in a dispute, although he does not like to disclose his plans ahead of time. In fundamental issues, he exhibits a toughness and intrinsicness. In this, he behaves impatiently and harshly, unafraid of going back and doing everything differently. He tries to approach matters from a different angle or with higher quality. Do we have any questions?
No, actually, I thought that fit perfectly.
All right, great. And understand that we got to get going pretty soon. So I'll just wait for a couple minutes for questions, and then we'll call it here. Okay, let's hear it, Ray. Yeah, that can happen. Actually, so the main thing that you're going to see with people typing differently in Model G than in Model A is going to be coming from the charges. Taking a very good example, in my opinion, say Oprah Winfrey. She's commonly typed as EIE in pretty much every other model, and even ENFJ and the other systems as well. But what we do see fluctuate is in Model G. She would probably be not EIE, because the issue with that is Oprah Winfrey has a positive view of the future, but in Model G, EIE has a negative view of the future. And so the issue there being they would have to be on the left ring. So it would be like ESE would probably be the next best type for Oprah Winfrey um, in Model G. So that's where you'd see that sort of trend there. Maybe IEI, but I think extrovert's probably better. What else? Did that answer your question? Okay. Yes, charges are very important in Model G. All right. And with that, I mean, I'll wait a few moments for any more questions, but I think that's probably going to be it. Thank you, everyone, for coming out here.